You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
Hey folks, welcome to the second and slightly late 2022 show. Life has chosen to intercede once again, but this time not anything too drastic.
No.
Just, everything from weather, which, I don't know about you, Scott, but it blew us offline here for several hours this morning.
Whether you like it or not, it happened.
So, if you haven't figured it out yet, welcome to another episode of On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. This is always kind of a creative show, particularly when we push it to the absolute last minute and then nature, traffic, and work intercede and make you late for the first time in 5 years. Yeah. So, I'm Kevin, the engineer, the general Jeep tech guy.
And I'm Scott. I'm the grinning idiot parts guy behind the scenes of the reason why we're late, but that's besides the point. But again, while we will share what worked for you, as well as what didn't.
What worked for them?
Yeah.
They haven't shared it with us. How are we going to share it with them?
Well, good point. While we will share what worked for you, or us, or whatever, including this. All right, hold on. Back up. I will get this. Yes, okay.
Ding.
All right. Now, while we will share what worked for us, and what didn't, like me not reading this thing, I got through. Thank you very much. All righty. It's really up to you to do it's really up to you
to do what you want to do with your Jeep. So please do your research, read the instructions, and unlike Scott, I want you to follow them.
I'm the loneliest bear in the world.
As long as you didn't.
We're not even 2 minutes in. We're already off the rails. Oh, man.
I didn't know we got on them to start with.
Well, that train of thought is still boarding at the station. And I'm only on a couple
And it's
hours.
A few cars short, I think.
Yeah. I need the sleeper car and the meal car.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So, anywho.
Yes.
One of the reasons the show's a little late is somebody's been gone.
Yeah, I took a 9-day vacation across 4 states, over 1,600 miles to go see Mom and Dad, and got away from a little bit and took Gunner on a road trip. And Gunner doesn't like road trips as much anymore. And Gunner had an accident in the car. Sorry, the Jeep. And it was messy. And let's just say... And of course, the poor guy's sitting there staring at me like, oh, Dad, I'm so sorry, because it was out both ends. And leather cleans up great, by the way. As I'm standing there in the snow in shorts on the side of the Silas Parkway in North Carolina, cleaning up everything with the expensive microfiber towels that I cracked open that I was going to use to wash the Jeep with. Nope, that got set on the ground next to the Jeep. And the entire container of Meguiar's leather wipes to get everything else done. I will say that we got back to the house and Gunner had some more tummy issues, so we went to the emergency vet, and turns out he was just stressed from the car ride. So
now he has
$700 later.
But he has a nice puppy happy pills.
Yes, he has puppy sedatives, so that next time we go on a car ride, he's blinking slowly and going, Dad, get a waffle or something. I'm hungry. But
Twinkies.
Twinkies. And the road trip was actually nice. It was snowy, and it was I missed the snow going up, and it was 19 or 17 degrees when I left. And yes, I was in my winter shorts. Gonna love the weather, and again, I spent a whole week up there. Spend some time with Mom and Dad. And, it was kind of nice getting in the saddle with the Jeep. I took the Gladiator this time, didn't take, the Red LJ. And everyone's saying, well, you just spent all that money getting things, done. There's some still things I want to do before I take a long trip like that with it. But I went and saw them and had a good time. And again, even though I didn't get a chance to do any wheeling yet, just being behind the wheel of the Jeep and on the highway, just me and my dog and the music blaring was very therapeutic. Taking that little bit of a drive was really nice. And as far as the red Jeep goes, the LJ, I'm happy to report everything's running cool now. Everything's still functioning as proceeded. Check engine light still comes off and on, but that's the $27 sensor. I still haven't changed out yet. But moving on from that subject. And speaking of that, a big thank you to Dave, a friend of ours who helped me get a used trail dash, so I can now do that same thing and turn that light off if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, things are kind of fun. I'm excited about some more road trips coming up. But again, the hardtop is beautiful. I love the hardtop. I am so happy to have the hardtop right now.
Does make a little difference, which is a far cry. It's nice to have a soft top when you want one, but if you have to live in your Jeep,
yeah. But again, the hardtop is really nice. But again, we get this week we're down to a blustery 60 degrees and, 11 inches of sunshine. So, the rest of the country hates us, but, it is what it is. But again, it was fun, and I got some other stuff coming up. I ordered my bed rug finally.
Oh,
so,
you did?
Yeah, so that will be coming in. And now once I get the bed rug in, now I just have to decide on what seats I want to get. I'm thinking about something nice like Kevin's Mastercraft or is it Caribou or Caribou? I can never say the name right.
Caribou.
That one, Caribou. So some nice kind of seats for the LJ because I want to give my back and tush some love, so I could sit there and do that kind of stuff. But, again, fun trip was had, and I got back in one piece. Gunner got back in one piece, cross-eyed and sleepy, but he was still there. Mm-hmm. But, again, a lot of people, liked the post and reached out, and, Tammy's doing the same thing over there at Jeep Mama. She's going and visiting and finding herself, so more to come on that one. But other than that, we got some really cool emails from some listeners.
Mm-hmm. And I want to give a shout out to David out of Phoenix, Arizona. He's got himself a 95 four-cylinder YJ that he is doing some modifications to. Sounds familiar to a green 95 YJ that we just did a lot of modifications.
Except this one's called the Buzzard Bus, which I love the name, by the way, Dave. That's awesome.
That is. It's a beautiful red, and he's got her lifted and all the necessary desert running accoutrements. But I get the feeling that he's also a little bit tired of it. And did he say something about an engine swap or something like that?
Well, down the road on the few-year plan, he's doing a 5.3 swap.
That's it. A little later for the advice on the 5.3 Vortec and maybe building a 3 and a 4-link setup. So that's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. But he did have a question. And Scott very quickly went, tech, here, Kevin.
Well, no. It was, hey, you're a parts guy. Thanks for the question. Let me send you a sticker. But yes, Kevin shall handle the technical questions, and because, technical plus me equals fire. But I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. It's just
most of the time.
Hey, I know how to hold the zero into the tape measure, and I did that rather well today. Thank you.
You did. All right, well, let's take a look. It says here you've already swapped in a 488 in the rear end and an AX15 transmission. So that's good. And then you have found an NP241 out of a 2004 TJ. Ruby, obviously. And he says he's curious what he'd need to do to make the speedometer work, as well as what might he have to do with drive shaft. So let's just jump right into it and start off with the good news and the bad news of the 241. The 241 does use a Hall effect sensor. It's a 3-wire sensor, and the 231 in your 95 should be a 3-wire Hall effect sensor as well. Right. Gen 1 of the sensor, but it's still a Hall effect. So the output from the 241 sensor should happily drive your dash. And I know that I can speak that fairly comfortably because that's what we did on the green one. We were able to, even though it was a 231 that we have in the 95 green one that we built down here with the LS, of course, we had to convert it over to a more modern system so that the LS could read it. Now, the hitch is going to be matching up the wire colors. And I did a quick look through my factory service manuals for you. And we're going to jump right into the fact that your 95, let me turn my light on here so I can read my writing. That's the horrible thing about being an engineer. Everybody says how bad doctor scribble is, but engineers are worse. All right. In your 95 YJ, the wires coming down to your transfer case where your speedo sensor is should be a white and an orange a solid orange, and a black with a light blue stripe. And of those, the orange is an 8-volt supply wire. Okay, that's coming from your old computer system to drive the sensor. The white with the orange stripe is the signal ground. I'm sorry, no, that's not signal. That's the signal wire back to the computer or the dash. It actually goes to both. And then the black with a light blue is your sensor ground.
Right.
All right, so you have voltage in, voltage out. That's the orange and the black with a light blue. And then there's a single wire, the white with orange, that's the signal that goes through your wiring and drives your dash module. On the 241, if you have the standard Jeep package, which I'm taking for the fact that you said a 2004 TJ Rubicon, you actually have a 5-volt supply on a yellow with a pink stripe wire. Now, that's a little different than the 8, and we'll get to that in a minute. You have a ground, your signal ground as well, is a dark blue with a dark green stripe. All right. And then you're going to have a dark blue orange stripe, and that's your signal wire. So in the perfect world, all you'd have to do is, looking at your harness here, marry up the 241's yellow pink wire to the orange wire to your YJ circuit, your dark blue with a dark green stripe on your 241 to your black with a light blue. And then the signal wire would be the dark blue orange wire off the 241 to the white orange wire on your YJ harness. However, ...
Yeah.
Here comes the bad news. I have no idea what gear sets were in the in either one of your Jeeps and what the way it is rigged. And when I say that, you're going to get a signal out of that Hall effect. And I believe it can even handle the 8-volt versus the 5-volt power difference without too much trouble. In fact, we drove one at full 12 volts, and it worked just fine without having a burnout. But is the Hall effect in the 241 is I'm going to call it a separate sensor. In the 231s, you had that little module that bolted with a little clamp bolt to the side of the output shaft on your 231s. And that you can buy the different, what they call the long gear or the short gear, depending on the model year type that you have. And you go on that little Quadratec chart that everybody uses, even if they don't buy it from Quadratec. And you get the number of teeth, and you plug it into the module, and then the module clocks in, and it rotates on an eccentric base that lets you pick to make sure that your driven gear is meshed to the worm gear in the transfer case. And that's how you adjust your speedometer. You pick different gears, and the gears are different colors to match up to your tire size and or your gear ratio.
Right.
In the 241, doesn't work that way. You have a reluctor wheel rather than a worm gear on the output shaft of the transfer case. And the best way to think of it is like a gear.
Yeah.
It's got gear teeth. And the sensor is very much like the crank position sensor on your old engine. It's a little Hall effect probe that goes down there. And as the teeth go by, and they're usually square cut rather than pointed, but there'll be a missing one, and that kind of is 0. And in the speedometer, there is not a missing tooth, but I'm on the crank position. There's a missing one that's at top dead center. So the computer can go click, 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 gap. Oh, I'm at top dead center.
Right.
On the transmission, it doesn't care. All it wants to know is how many clicks per second. Tells it,
how fast you're going.
And so you can't really swap gears around.
Right.
So if you're lucky and your ratio and everything line up, you could connect the wires up and your speedometer will probably work fine. Most likely that's not the case. However, there is an answer.
Yay.
And this is what I had to do on the 95. That's why I know this one.
Mm-hmm.
You need a matching unit. The one that we used on Bob's 95 was a Dakota Digital SG1 100BT. It's about $97 on Amazon. You can get it directly from Dakota Digital as well. It's a neat little box. Got little switches on it and a few other things that you can play with. But the point is, this also gets you past the voltage issue. This is a little box you mount up under the dash, anywhere you find a secure place that it can be either zip tied or screwed down snug. You give it key switch power and a clean ground, okay, which there's plenty of them under the dash, different places you can pick, but you want key on power. And then it has some connections. And at this point, you're going to kind of go up and find those wires we just talked about, the orange wire that's the 8-volt supply, and you're going to actually clip it off of where it tees behind the dash and move it over the Dakota Digital. And it's got a little set screw in there that you can strip off like an old terminal block and slide it under, and you'll see a plus 5 volt. So in other words, the Dakota Digital actually is set up for the more modern voltages and will provide the 5 volts. It also has a signal ground, okay? And it says that, you know. So you'll hook up the black with a light blue wire. You'll clip it from wherever it grounded from and move it over, or you can add new wire, whatever you want. And then that will go down and hook up to the ground. And then here's the neat and dirty stuff, is you take the signal wire that is coming out of the 230, the transfer case 241, the yellow pink wire that you may or may not have fed up through the orange white. I know that's a little confusing, but
yeah.
And you'll take that to the input, the Speedo input terminal. And then from there, you're going to take the output from the signal box. The instructions are very clear, and feed that back into your dash assembly on the white with orange wire. It goes lots of places here. So you just need to tie that signal in. And then the Dakota Digital itself will, it'll feed a nice 5-volt clean signal to the sensor. So the sensor will put out a nice clean pulse back. And then you can adjust the Speedo ratio any way you want. You can go out and test drive it and go, okay, take your phone, get yourself a GPS app in your phone, read what it says. This is what we did with Bob's.
Yeah.
Yeah. You read down the road and, okay, I am 7 miles per hour off. Or the easiest thing is I'm seeing 45 here.
And I'm saying still.
And I'm seeing 60 over here kind of thing. Divide the two and you get a percentage. And the Dakota Digital has little set points that you can go in there and you can adjust it. And it's really neat because once you have it, if you decide to re-gear or change tire sizes, you don't have to pay anybody. You can just go back in and reprogram your Dakota Digital and have a correct dash.
Sweet.
Once you set it and save it, it saves it into a non-volatile memory. Because when you turn the Jeep off, of course, it goes dead. So it doesn't reset to zero. It remembers where you are, so you don't have to worry about any of the data being lost. You're going to jump in and just start your Jeep up, start driving. And
it's literally a turn and go.
It's a turn and go.
Sorry.
So you are going to have to do that somewhere along the line. But the key is that we've already done the hard part. We know that the system will survive a 12-volt feed. It works on an 8-volt, but it works also on a 5-volt feed.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the easier systems out there. Now, the weird thing that will come up is the connector down at the transfer case, the electrical connector that goes to the speedometer sensor. You may have to go digging around a little bit because, as I recall, your YJ's feed is the early generation of the 231. And in that case, the plug is, I may get this backwards, I apologize. I'm trying to pull from memory here. But in one case, the early YJs, it's the same connector, but the male was on the wire and the female was on the sender unit.
Right.
And then somewhere along the line, later YJ to early TJ, they flipped it and they put the reverse to having the female on, one and the other. And so you go, hey, wait a minute. Would you call it this?
Well, both ends are the same, unfortunately.
Yeah. Both ends are the same. So you have to pick one or the other and rewire one of the two connectors. The good news is your NP241 speedometer lead should be fairly long. It had a whip on the end of it to allow it to fit. But there is no difference on the cable end, I know, on the later TJs. If I put that 241 into a later TJ, supposedly, according to the factory service manual, it should plug in. And unfortunately, while my Jeep's here, which is a 231. Scott chose to come over with the Gladiator, so we don't have the 241 to look at.
Yeah.
So that's your Speedo. Yes, it is doable. That is number one. And if you start playing around with it and get some information, have some questions, go ahead and email me back. I'll be glad to help you out there.
Sweet.
Second question, drive shafts.
Well, this one's easy.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. Even Scott can answer this one since he's got the prototype.
Yeah.
The output of your 241 is a flange. It's not a yoke.
And it's strong.
And it's very strong, and it's round, not square like the Ford one was, and so it's not going to sit there and bounce on rocks. It's just going to spin. That's really good. Problem is I know that most drive shaft shops are going to look at you and go, yeah, you're going to have to do a changeover to an SYE and put a yoke on there. Not true. You can if you want. That just means tearing the transfer case apart to get in there, or taking the bolt off to do it. However, we do know that, and this is not a sponsored comment, we just know that Gulf Coast Drive Shaft is how you'll find them on the web in Brandon, Florida. He can make the flange drive shafts. And he did it for Scott. Scott's is the first prototype one. It bolted up, and you've been running it now. And
it is smooth as glass at 70-ish miles an hour.
And the challenge here is that the Rubicon came from the factory as a single cardan. We talked about this in the last show.
Yeah.
And the slip yoke was actually built in the end of the transmission. And so when most of us make the conversion with an SYE, you have a double cardan at the top, which helps with the angularity. That's two U-joints back-to-back with a centering ball assembly between them. And then you have a single down at the axle flange. And most drive shaft shop will tell you that they don't have a double cardan drive coupler to that round 241 flange. Shane has located that part. He knows what the cross reference is. And
he's done all the R&D for you.
He's done the R&D, and it can be done to give you a bolt up to the 241 output flange with a double cardan, which really helps. And I'm looking at the picture of your Jeep. You have a pretty good lift on it, so you're going to have some angularity issues.
Yeah. So
you're probably going to want that double cardan right up there on the transfer case. He also typically does it with the where you would have to order and be very specific on this, that in Scott's case with the Ruby rear axle, you're a 1330 drive system, right, whereas the TJ and the YJs are 1310s. But he can build you one with, and he went with a double cardan that was a 1350 up at the transfer case, and then he gave Scott a 1330 at the axle, but that's what his axle required. He can equally build you one that's got the 1350s at the transfer case and the 1310 down at the axle end.
Yeah.
And they're really good about working with you about measurements and that kind of stuff. So if you need to go that route, you can contact them. Mm-hmm. Although be warned right now is ask around anybody in the drive shaft world, parts are hard to come by. They're having the same delivery problems of everybody else. Mm-hmm. Now Shane's one of the few that I will tell you he is dead honest. If he tells you that it's back ordered, and he'll tell you just, I won't throw you away. Just wait for, a couple of weeks or 6 weeks or whatever. Although he will take your order and put it in too. So, they're good folks there. They can really help you out, but you will have some issues. The other option is to do a conversion to the yoke style, and then you can use a more normal drive shaft. The problem is you give up a lot of the advantages with the 241 and that round output flange being relatively rock resistant.
Yeah.
And looking at the background pictures of your photos, you got plenty of rocks to play with.
Yeah, man. He's got these like the coolest wheeling spots, like just in this one picture. It's probably like across the street from his house or something like that. But yeah, nothing like that at all.
I was going to say, I've been to Phoenix quite a few times. Yes, most of the world looks like that out there.
That is so cool.
It is cool. I mean, if we take a picture like that, all you can see is palm trees and sand, and it's kind of flat, and people mired up to their frame because it's sugar sand everywhere.
Yes.
So.
Time to get the shovel out. You know what?
Yeah. So, Dave, thanks very much for the photo. Thanks for the email and the question. And again, anything else, give us a shout. I'll do my best to help you out.
on the trail podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Also, too, speaking of wheeling and getting outside the flat sugar sand and all that, coming up this year, we're trying to get out more, and we got Jeep Beach coming up at the end of April, beginning of May.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be fun. Again, not too much wheeling, but again, a party is had by all.
Yeah, and you can get out on the beach, and you can also get out on the obstacle course.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember last year whether I think last year somebody managed to turn turtle.
Yes.
It's one of the more radical, very short obstacle courses, but they do tend to make them rather challenging.
Yeah, adventurous for sure.
Yeah.
And again, lots of vendors to see and stuff like that. And then
get out there and see Will from Metal Cloak and Corey and
Madsen,
and get your rig on their CTI trailer. Hopefully they're going to be there.
Yes.
Yeah, Will, tell me you're going to be there.
Yeah, something like that, yes.
And then we've got several other events around here. We're trying to get to.
We're planning
on trips, back up to some of our wheeling haunts in the lower southern states, but not in Florida.
Yeah.
We'll go that point. Since it hasn't been announced yet as even opening, and later in the fall, we are also considering whether we may make a trip to SEMA again, particularly if I find out some more information if there's anything new worth going for.
Right.
But and then we've got a few things that we're trying to get set up for the Tennessee areas and that kind of stuff, if we can work them out.
We just kind of want to go wheeling like a Windrock and a few other places with friends and just to take that trip,
Yeah, really. I am ready. I mean, my poor Jeep's sitting in there. I had to put it back on the battery charger.
I saw that, yeah.
The heaviest off-roading it did was pulling down to get the mower pulled the stuck mower out of the pond. It slid in again.
It's been a challenging couple of years for everyone.
It has.
But, again, just like anything else, we soldier on. When the money's spent, the Jeeps are in good working order for the most part, and we'll just get back out there and enjoy it.
Yep.
Again, they haven't really announced dates, but there's also like Jeeptoberfest and, calling for the following again and all that, which is going to be great. But as far as everything else goes, I mean, we're kind of excited for everything. I mean, it's going to be a fun time had by all, but, again, we're just going to get through the next week by week,
Week by week's all we can do.
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick little break and get to the ground segment? Cool. Well, we will be right back in a moment after this word from something. And now, the words you've been waiting for. Something. Okay, now, sorry. Just as always, check out the 4x4 Radio Network and also, to our Patreon page if you'd like to help to become a supporter of the show. Again, a big thank you to all our corporate Patreons and our individual Patreons. But as far as that goes, we're going to tippy tire back into Kevin's garage because, just make sure you got your tetanus shot, kids, because things are a bit rusty.
Yep. Well, we'll get to that in just a second. I forgot to mention the other thing was my cameo on one of the Jeep Labs videos.
Oh, yes. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So, as I've mentioned before, we're friends with quite a few of the shops, and Mark over at the Jeep Lab here in Tampa, and he's starting to develop quite a little YouTube channel out there. And but he had given me a shout to come on out and help him with a recalcitrant little Jeep. Actually, two of them. He just happened to own one of them. The one he owned was leaking like crazy, and the one that was in the shop, well, it had other running problems, but it was leaking pretty good too. So one of the things we got into was talking about the valve cover and the valve cover gaskets and the weird quirky thing on the 4 liters, not the 4.2s, but the 4 liters. In that, I explained to him, I said, well, just understand something, Mark, that you can tighten the bolts on the valve cover all you want, and you're not going to stop at the leak.
Okay.
And he was kind of gave me that, huh? Yep. And I said, because the valve cover bolts don't hold down the valve cover.
Okay.
And they don't, folks. And if you watch the video, okay, just Google Jeep, not Google, but YouTube search the Jeep Lab. It'll come up, and I'm in there. He even put my cameo on the cover. But what it is, folks, real short and simple, we've talked about it way back several years ago on some of the maintenance, is the valve cover on the 4 liter, and just about all of them from, I'm going to say 97 on, what looks like a washer under that bolt isn't really a washer. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It's a tube with a washer head.
A grommet?
Yeah, it's kind of like a rivet,
Okay.
and the bolt goes through the center of it. And when you tighten the bolt, you tighten that rivet down to the head. That rivet holds a rubber donut. That rubber donut is what pushes down on the valve cover. So if you're like a lot of people who have had a leak and pulled it off and bought a new gasket and stuck it on there and tightened it down, and then are cussing because you're still marking your spot, you probably did not get one of the better gasket sets that has replacement little rubber donuts. They're not just simple donuts. They're not like an O-ring. They have a little clip in the center that clips into the actual valve cover hole itself. When you pull that off and clean it, you realize, my God, that hole is enormous compared to the bolt.
Yeah.
But that is designed so that you cannot over-tighten and distort the valve cover.
Right.
So you clamp down this little, I don't know how to, again, this little T-shaped washer ring.
The manufacturer I work for does those same things on a certain 4.3 liter V8.
Yep.
And it is or 4.6 liter V8. It doesn't matter. 4.3 liter V8. I had it right the first time. And we just call them valve cover grommets.
Yeah, they're valve cover grommet. And I do know that Felpro, not a sponsor, but their gasket set is the proper set.
That's what I
for
use.
the 4.0. It's got the steel cord, elastomeric, blue elastomeric seal,
Right.
that goes over that's the actual gasket, quote unquote. But it also comes with a little bag with the little grommets, and I've seen a lot of those thrown in the trash. And if you don't change them, the problem is over time and heat, those grommets get hard, and because they get tightened once, they get scrunched.
Yeah.
And they take a set. And then you can tighten down all you want, but the bolt is only pushing that little piece of pipe with a flange on top up against the head.
Right.
And if the little rubber grommet isn't putting pressure on the valve cover, you got no seal.
It's just like a scuba tank. It tightens only so much, and then the actual
Elastomeric.
thank you properties of the O-ring is what seals it, not the tightness.
Right. And it's designed that way so that the valve cover actually can move a little bit as the head expands and contracts and vibrations. And if you look at the proper gasket itself, it's actually not just a big flat chunk of rubber. It's that little steel plate has a fin on each side, one pointing up, one pointing down. And,
Yep.
and it can wipe on the head, and it can wipe kind of on that sealing area of the valve cover and create a very dynamic, flexible seal that will hold oil. Because we all know that our 4 liters are leaning back quite steeply, particularly if we add an engine lift.
Yep.
And if you look at the actual head, as I showed these guys a couple of years ago when we did the Edelbrock head,
Yes.
the drain hole isn't all the way at the back of the head.
No.
So even when you shut down your Jeep, there's a puddle of oil up there at the back of the head. And you wonder why, if there's going to be a leak, it's going to show up at the back of the head, drip down through your clutch or your
Crankshaft position center.
crankshaft position center and drip out the bottom, leaving that little Harley mark on the floor. So,
Come on, Jeep, the litter box.
but anyway, thanks, Mark. I appreciate being asked to. It was one of these that we started working, and he looked over and says, "Oh, do you mind being on video?" As I look up at the camera in my face. But it's kind of fun to work with somebody else that's got a little bit of the show and tell going in him too.
Yeah.
The other thing we're going to get to, as Scott alluded to, was the rusty metal. For those of you that hang on around with us on the Facebook page, you've seen a post or two of my getting back into the what's he up to, and I'm back on the green TJ that I'm helping my friend put back together. It was running around, but he's decided it's time to start doing a little more work. And so we wanted to dive in and deal with, the tin worm, as they call it in England.
Yeah.
Rust. And initially they'd looked under the driver's side floor, and found a hole, and they bought a patch panel, and some of his friends came over and they welded it back in, and it's okay. And then he started, okay, well, let me clean and start pulling things apart so that he could go back and see how bad it was. And then he was like, oh,
It's a consecrated Jeep.
yeah, it is. Holier than thou.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went over and he said, you want to play some more? Sure. So we took off and started a little bit of exploration. And I was talking to Scott earlier. I said, one of the key things before you start cutting metal and buying parts, do your exploration. Start cutting away. Find out how bad it is, because you might think, okay, I just need a little 6 by 8 inch strip of metal, and then you start chasing, and something that should have taken 1 or 2 cuts and now ends up being 7 or 8 pieces of metal all tacked welded together.
Right.
And we went ahead and cleaned it out, and we're able to salvage the driver's side rear. So that was done with a little bit of leftover front sheet metal that we had that, believe it or not, shares the same stamping. So I replaced a whole section, probably about a foot square, and then some other cut pieces up against the wheel well. And we custom fabbed a lot of it, bent a lot of sheet metal, pounded some things, used a flanger. If you guys do sheet metal and you haven't seen a flanger, you can get a cheap one for about $40 at Harbor Freight that does a pretty dang good job.
Yep.
Up to 16 gauge, although 16 gauge sheet metal is pretty much pushing the tool to its limit.
Yeah.
But there isn't much 16 gauge anywhere on a Jeep, particularly a rusty one.
Yeah.
It also, so it does a little step about half an inch in on the edge of the metal, creates a little step so that the two sheets can lap each other, but not stick up proud. It lets it finish flush. Now, the other side, of course, has a, whatever gauge, 20 gauge flange.
Yeah.
Then it also has a hole puncher built into it. And that beats the heck out of drilling holes. You just and you punch a series of rosette weld holes. And then I like to use tech screws, which are those self-drilling, self-tapping screws in every other hole to pull all the pieces tight and then run along and buzz up all the holes. And then we had to do about 50% on the one side with butt welding it, just going along, skipping around, letting it cool down. And every once in a while you find a thinner sheet metal than you thought it was because it goes, bleh. And you can, okay, let me chase that and see how far I have to create a Jeep by welding.
What was the old joke? Cut or measure twice, cut once?
Yeah. Well, in this case, you can't always tell. Sometimes the seam sealer hideth and in fact holdeth the pieces together. But we got wise. That's funny, the passenger side front floor pan is good, but the passenger's rear floor pan side, in the back is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
And this time, folks, I'll try and get the pictures before and after in the right order. But I will be posting that out there. But it's kind of a fun project when you realize that the structure of the Jeep is not the body. Yes, there's some structure to it, and it should be solid, but it in itself isn't holding the wheels on. That's the frame. And we do have some frame repair to do too, but more on that later. So that's been a fun little project. And after treating everything with a rust killer, we're going to get replacement seam sealer. That's a step I think a lot of people forget.
Yep.
And if you don't re-seam seal, if you don't derust, clean, derust, clean again, prime, and then seam seal, you're going to get moisture and rot back right in there really fast. But if you do the seam seal, even if your welds aren't the prettiest, and I will guarantee you quite a few of mine were a little rough tracing it, but you can sit there and beat on it with a hammer now, and the floor is not shedding and falling down. And once you seam seal it, and then we're going to put, he wants to go with the Noico bitumen aluminum, like the Dynamat type stuff.
I got you.
They've commented they enjoyed running without the carpet in, and they're going, but it's so hot. Yeah, welcome to TJ's. You got the catalytic converter sitting there running around 800 degrees right by your feet. Yeah. So we're gonna do that, and then they have already bought their bed rug.
Meanwhile, the corns on my feet are popping.
Oh.
Orville Redenbacher, this ain't.
So
there's a name you haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. But, folks, I will tell you out there that it's really not that hard to do. It doesn't take a really expensive welder. I just have a nice little Hobart smaller rig. It's a 210 MVP. A good welding helmet with cheater lenses so that I don't have to wear glasses and then still try to see through it. Yeah. And patience. It's that wonderful thing, patience, just, okay, that's thinner than I thought. Okay, cut some more sheet metal.
Yep.
Keep on welding. When we're done, we'll lift the Jeep up. We'll come underneath it. We'll clean up everything, and we will seam seal from the bottom as well.
That's the trick.
Yeah. And then once that's done, we will get some undercoating, spray undercoating, and go over top of the seam sealer. And we're doing this in preparation for, we've got one pretty badly rusted haunch on the driver's side rear frame, right where it swings up from below the running boards and goes into the wheel well area. We have the replacement frame piece. It was only about $80. Includes both upper and lower mounts. And we'll talk about that after we get it in there, but there's a trick that we're going to do to make sure that everything goes back in the right place.
Right.
And it's not a hard trick, but it does kind of rely on the body to kind of hold the frame pieces together after you clean all the rust out. So right now what we've got is the Jeep chalked in on a spot where we're happy with the alignment of the frame and everything. It's still solid enough that it's not sagging and the wheel hasn't moved. And that's why we're going to fix the body up and get it solid so that when we jack up the Jeep, we put some stiff knees under the frame, both in front of the wheel and behind the rear wheel, so that it can't droop or sag while we section out. Because we have to replace this, we have to cut out the upper and lower swing arm frame mounts because the replacement peep has to slide over that.
That's scary.
It really is, but it isn't. And here's the simple trick is you chock the wheel front and rear so it cannot roll. Put the parking brake on too. You set the Jeep up with jacks and or even we're going to just tack weld some leftover steel pipe. It's a drive shaft shop. There's thousands of feet of busted up steel pipe that sit on the ramp that it's on right now so that the back half can't sag down. It shouldn't because the body should hold it, but just in case, I'll stiff knee that. And then in the front of the wheels, again, so it can't droop down.
Right.
And then I'll unbolt the arms and swing them out of the way, but don't take them out. Then clean off, with the wheel chocked and the body locked, clean off all of the accoutrements of the frame until the repair piece will slide over. We've already derusted everything. Slide that over, mark where it is, go back, drill for rosette holes for welding and all that kind of stuff. Slide it back into position, clamp it, and then reconnect the arms. Mm-hmm. That will force that frame piece to the same location that the old one was. And then go ahead and tack it in with some very hardy tacks, both inside, outside, front, and rear. Get it where it's stable. And then you can disconnect the arms again and sit down.
Burn it in.
And burn it in.
Yeah.
Paint it up. And you should bolt it right back in. And heck, it shouldn't even mess up your front end alignment.
No.
So we'll let you know how that goes. That's a couple of weeks out at this point right now.
There'll be pictures.
Yeah, we'll take some pictures. I got to remember to do that. I get over there and I get busy and stuff. And next thing you know, it's like Scott goes, "Did you take any pictures?" Oh.
Yeah.
It didn't happen if you didn't take any pictures.
Yeah. Well, that's a couple of my friends have seen like your post and, and everything else. And they're like, "Man, you guys really do, dive right in." I said, no. Kevin really dives right in. I was here with you guys, but it's kind of fun because again, it's one of those when you have the capabilities. When you have the capabilities to repair something correctly, it's always the best course of action. I've been in many of friends' Volkswagens in high school where I looked down at my feet and saw stop, yield, or something else.
Yes.
I'm like, that's not hush. It's a floor pan. I'm like, okay, there's no joke, dude. There is like drywall screws holding this on.
Yeah,
it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not.
Not really. Everybody thinks, well, see, it's holding you in. Yeah, but that's fine. But not if you have an accident, heaven forbid, or somebody T-bones you. You want the thing to be structurally sound.
Yeah. And
the only way to make it structurally sound is to put the structure back the way the designer designed it.
Yeah, putting structure in.
But it's been fun. It's a lot of fun when I can help friends out that find themselves in a little bit of a Now, the wild thing is we've worked on it, and this is the $1,500 green TJ, I'm sorry, and it still hasn't cost him over $2,000.
Yeah.
So when we're done with all these pieces, it's still going to be a $2K or under TJ that runs drives, would pass inspection, and will wheel soon.
Well, and you saved it from the salvage yard?
Yeah, whatever.
Salvage yard, scrap yard.
Scrap yard.
Well, actually, that would be a salvage yard if you think
Yes,
about
it would.
Yeah. Hey, I made a new word. But that, my friends, is what we call a Scottism.
Yes. So otherwise, life continues here. Wish there was more to report. The new workshop is still pending because the new house still isn't open.
Yeah.
We went to visit today. We're having some fun with our local power company to get power to the structure.
Fluffy kittens.
Fluffy kittens, yes. But and then I've got to move and not leaving the area, just moving out to the country, getting out of the city since we don't have to commute anymore. One of the joys of being retired.
Yeah.
But then I get to build my shop, and there will be a serious garage. Right now, as you've seen in some of the early videos, I just have a 3-car garage, which everybody goes, 3-car garage? No, this is typical in Florida.
Yeah.
We don't have basements, folks, so the builders build out, not up or down. But this case, I am going to go a little crazy, and we'll talk more about that as it gets closer. But I've got some concept drawings and some ideas and done layouts. And
there really will be a Kevin's Garage.
There really will be. There really, really, really will be. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, as you should. I'm looking forward to some of my new futures and my new things coming up in my future. I just said the word futures 3 times. In my defense, I am tired.
And we don't mean the kind with lugs on them and wheel balance weights.
No, it's yeah.
It's been he had a long week.
Yeah.
After being gone a week.
And I worked 6 days this past week.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, while he was gone, a few other employees decided they had better fortunes elsewhere. So he came back to not only his work in arrears,
yes,
but a couple other people's.
And I'm also teaching my new leader boss how to be a leader boss.
Yeah, well, that's how it works. Those that have the ability will do. Otherwise, businesses fail, and then everybody loses their job.
It's just interesting. He's like, here, you take it. No, I didn't get a receipt. It's yours. You can have it. No exchanges after 30 days.
So, but as we said, we are looking to get back onto the trail, even if it's a small one. I still got Bob with the YJ, and Shane wants to go out to the farm and go do some low-level wheeling out there, and we're going to get him out there.
I do want to say a quick congratulations to Don Cox. He was actually recognized by the Tread Lightly, and he's actually, I guess, an ambassador. I'll get the exact title here eventually. Yeah. But I'd like to have him on the show and a few other people.
We will get him on. Don, we've met. He's down here in the Tampa region, and he is a Tread Lightly ambassador, been trained and can give talks and talk with folks about why it's a good idea to tread lightly. It's not just our show slogan. It's an actual, it should be a requirement for everybody driving off-road. And he's a great guy, has a great message. And if you ever get a chance to go to any one of the Tread Lightly ambassadors talks, it's worth it.
Yeah. And again, just Google it and check in your local Jeep group area and club, and, hopefully they'll steer you in the right direction, because we actually had an adventure last weekend where someone was putting those cow drops inside the barbed wire looking things out in our local wheeling area.
Oh, caltrops.
Caltrops. Thank you. I almost had it right. Cow drops is something else.
Cow drops. Yeah, caltrops.
Oh, wait,
for those that don't know,
Judd.
Those were the weapons in the old days when you had mounted cavalry. They really were. They were iron made. They look like the barbs on a barbed wire fence. They're made to stand up, and they're a horrible thing. They will lame a horse and have them go down and throw a rider, and then if you fell off a horse onto one of these, you're skewered. So no, anybody that does that, I'm sorry. That ranks right up there with me, the people that drive headless spikes into trees so that loggers get mutilated when their chainsaws explode. And they say, "Oh, this is only right." No, it's wrong.
Yeah,
okay?
No, and then there have been people making cheap ones of hammering nails into 2x4s and throwing them into the water. So as you do a water crossing, you get 8 puncture holes. And again, that's why we have people like Don Cox to help that from keep that from happening.
If those of us who want to explore the land do tread lightly, and wheel legal, they won't have a reason to do crazy things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they shouldn't do it anyway. That's combat. That's not environmentalism. But that's me. That's a personal opinion.
That's why we have Don on too, to help us through this. No pun intended.
We get so
of
we get
feelings.
so upset when we hear about that kind of stuff.
I just had to talk about that. I didn't mean to blindside poor Kevin with that, but I felt it needed to be said because it really made me upset. Because at the same time, the group of people that did that because I got tired of Jeepers are the same people. Like, those things don't differentiate between a deer hoof and a tire on a Jeep.
No, they don't. Or a horse on somebody out riding a trail or something like that. So
Yeah.
but or a hiker, go right through a hiking boot.
Yeah.
Okay, don't get me off that. Get me.
Okay, moving on. Fluffy kittens. Fluffy kittens.
Well, folks, again, a shout out to David out in Phoenix.
Yep.
Thanks. And any of you have any questions, I'll do what I can to help.
Mm-hmm.
I do know the one thing. I was going to also give a second shout out for Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Mark did on the Jeep Lab videos, he just put in some of the new aluminum oil cooler housings.
Okay.
And
for the Dorman one.
for the Dorman replacement, for the plastic ones that have been leaking on the
3.6 liter.
3.6s. And so if you're interested in that, or if you've got that mystery oil drip, in your 3.6, go to Mark's page again.
The Jeep Lab.
The Jeep Lab. And take a look at that because he just posted that, I think, yesterday.
Sweet. Well,
So
that's good to know.
He talks about a review on it and what it's like, and he tells you the pros and cons. And as he says, it's not always the plastic that failed, but better hear it from him. It's better from his YouTube channel.
Yeah, we'll do it as a teaser. So, but I think it's time that we've run out of time and time to hit the forward low Jeep and trail.
Yeah, guys, put the Jeep in low and hit the trail.
Take nothing but pitch. No. I'm going to get this. It's time to hit the trail and put the Jeep in 4 low. Take nothing but pictures, memories, and your trash when you leave the trail. And remember to tread lightly.
Wheel legal,
and tread lightly. I forget it.
Folks, we appreciate you listening. You're what this show's about. Any ideas for new subject matters or questions, as we said before, give us a shout here, either on Facebook.
Email onthetrailpodcast@gmail.com. And if we like your question, we'll send you a sticker.
Yeah, Scott started doing that now.
Yeah. It's what I want to do. It's a way to give back,
And we have a couple other ideas we're going to chat about, and we'll bring those up in another show.
Sounds like a plan. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I promise I'll get sleep for the next one. I promise.
Proceeding has been provided for entertainment only. Proper service and repair procedures are vital to the safe, reliable operation of all motor vehicles, as well as personal safety of those performing those repairs. Standard safety procedures and precaution, including the use of safety goggles and proper tools and equipment, should be followed at all times to eliminate the possibility of personal injury or improper service which could damage the vehicle or compromise its safety.
What he said. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. You guys have a great day.
Bye.
This has been a Bent Axle Media production.